What if everything we have been told about our past is wrong? We are taught a simple, comforting story in school. Humanity began as primitive hunter-gatherers. We stumbled upon agriculture, built villages, and then slowly, painstakingly, created civilization. It is presented as a straight line of progress, a neat, orderly march from the cave to the skyscraper. But what if this story is not the whole truth? What if it is a carefully constructed narrative that leaves out the most important chapters of our own story? The evidence suggests this is exactly the case. It is a story full of gaping holes and uncomfortable questions that mainstream academics prefer to ignore. All around the world, we find mysteries that defy this simple timeline. In our ancient past, we see fingerprints of a lost, sophisticated civilization, and in our modern skies, we see phenomena that our best scientists cannot explain. These two mysteries, one ancient and one modern, may be deeply connected. They both challenge our fundamental understanding of who we are and where we fit in the cosmos. They force us to consider a radical possibility. Perhaps we are a species with amnesia, a species that has forgotten a profound and world-altering chapter of its own history. A history that may have involved contact with intelligence beyond our own. Today, on June 20th, 2025, we stand at a unique moment in time. The walls of official denial are beginning to crack. For decades, the subject of unidentified anomalous phenomena, or UAPs, was relegated to the fringes. It was a topic for ridicule and dismissal. But now it is being discussed in the halls of the U.S. Congress. High-ranking military officials and intelligence officers are coming forward under oath. They are speaking of things they were never supposed to reveal. They describe a reality that is far more complex and mysterious than the public has been led to believe. This modern push for disclosure forces us to look back. It compels us to re-examine the ancient mysteries with new eyes. The story of human history is not a straight line. It is a labyrinth filled with dead ends, hidden passages, and forgotten chambers. It has been shattered and pieced back together many times. We have been fed a version of the past that is incomplete, perhaps deliberately so. By exploring the enigmas of our ancient ancestors and connecting them to the revelations unfolding today, we can begin to piece together a more accurate picture of our journey. We can start to ask the questions that have been suppressed for far too long. Who are we really? And what is our true destiny? The answers may be startling and they may change everything. The official story of history begins to unravel when you stand before the great megalithic structures of the ancient world. These are not the work of simple farmers who had just discovered agriculture. They are monuments of profound skill and genius. Consider the Great Pyramid of Giza. It is a mountain of stone constructed with more than 2.3 million blocks, some weighing up to 80 tons. These blocks were quarried and transported from hundreds of miles away. They were then fitted together with a precision that modern builders would struggle to replicate. The entire structure is aligned to true north with an accuracy that is simply breathtaking. How was this achieved by a Bronze Age society with only copper tools and ropes? This is not an isolated puzzle. Travel to Stonehenge in England. Giant sarsen stones weighing an average of 25 tons were moved over long distances and erected in a precise astronomical observatory. Or journey high into the Andes Mountains to Machu Picchu. Here, massive granite blocks were cut and shaped to fit together without mortar, like pieces of a giant jigsaw puzzle. The stonework is so perfect that you cannot fit a knife blade between the stones. These were not primitive people. They possessed a deep and sophisticated understanding of engineering, logistics, and astronomy that our history books simply cannot account for. They knew things that we have forgotten. Then there is Göbekli Tepe in modern-day Turkey. This site turns the entire story of civilization on its head. Dated to around 9,600 BC, it is 6,000 years older than Stonehenge. It is a complex of massive T-shaped stone pillars, intricately carved with animals and symbols. According to mainstream archaeology, this site was built by hunter-gatherers, people who had not yet developed pottery, metallurgy, or even permanent settlements. Yet they managed to quarry, transport, and erect these 20-ton pillars to create a sophisticated ritual center. This suggests that the accepted timeline is fundamentally flawed. Civilization did not begin with agriculture. Instead, it seems a complex, organized society came first. These sites are not just random collections of big rocks. They are silent witnesses to a forgotten chapter of our past. They speak of a level of technological and scientific knowledge that should not have existed in the deep past. The mainstream explanation, that countless anonymous workers using simple tools achieved these miracles through sheer brute force and time feels inadequate. It strains credulity. We are forced to ask a difficult question. Could these builders have been the inheritors of a much older, lost tradition of knowledge? A tradition that originated with a predecessor civilization that has been almost entirely erased from our memory. If an advanced civilization did exist in our remote past, what happened to its knowledge? It is one thing to lose a city to a cataclysm, but it is another to lose an entire repository of science and wisdom. The historical record, however, is filled with stories of deliberate destruction. It seems that at key moments in our past, powerful forces have sought to control the narrative by destroying the evidence. They have burned the books and silenced the voices that spoke of a different version of history. This has left us adrift, disconnected from our true heritage and forced to rediscover what our ancestors already knew. The most famous example is the burning of the Great Library of Alexandria. This was not just a library, it was the intellectual center of the ancient world. It was said to hold hundreds of thousands of scrolls containing the accumulated knowledge of Greece, Egypt, and beyond. It held works on mathematics, astronomy, engineering, and history. When it was destroyed, an incalculable store of ancient wisdom was lost forever. What secrets were turned to ash? What histories were erased? We can only speculate, but it is likely that the library contained information that contradicted the emerging orthodoxies of the time, both religious and political. We also find hints of suppressed knowledge in ancient texts that have survived against the odds. Consider the Book of Enoch, a text that was revered by early Christians but was later banned and excluded from the biblical canon. It tells a strange story of watchers, beings who descended from the heavens. These beings taught humanity forbidden arts and sciences, astronomy, weaponry, and enchantments. This led to corruption and chaos, culminating in a great flood. Is this just a simple myth, or is it a distorted memory of a real event? A cautionary tale about knowledge that humanity was not ready for, delivered by beings from somewhere else. This pattern of suppression may continue to this day. Many researchers point to the Vatican Secret Archives, a vast repository of historical documents spanning centuries. While the Vatican insists it contains only church records, its very secrecy invites speculation. What histories, what inconvenient truths, might be hidden away in those miles of shelving? The deliberate destruction of knowledge, whether at Alexandria or through the suppression of texts like the Book of Enoch, is a recurring theme in our history. It suggests a concerted effort to edit our past, to prune the branches of knowledge that do not fit a particular worldview, leaving us with a story that is sanitized and incomplete. For generations, we have been taught to dismiss the myths and legends of our ancestors as primitive fantasies. We see them as charming but ultimately meaningless stories created to explain natural phenomena. But what if we have been profoundly mistaken? What if these ancient myths are not fantasies at all? What if they are the distorted, fragmented memories of real events and real technologies? Perhaps our ancestors were not inventing stories. Perhaps they were doing their best to describe things that were far beyond their comprehension, using the language and concepts available to them. Look at the ancient texts of India, the Vedas, and the Mahabharata. These texts describe incredible flying machines called vimanas. They are described in remarkable detail as circular craft that could fly with the speed of the wind and produced a melodious sound. They were said to carry devastating weapons capable of destroying entire cities. For centuries, these were dismissed as poetic fancy. But in an age of aircraft and drones, these descriptions suddenly seem eerily familiar. Were the ancient poets simply imagining flying machines, or were they recording what they or their ancestors had actually witnessed in the skies? This theme is not unique to India. In ancient Sumeria, the oldest known civilization, we find the stories of the Anunnaki. These were beings who, according to the cuneiform tablets, came from the heavens to earth. They were described as teachers and gods who gave humanity the gifts of civilization, law, agriculture, and science. Similarly, the Hopi people of Arizona have traditions of the Kachinas, or star people, who came from the sky to guide them. Across cultures separated by vast oceans and thousands of years, we find the same core story-wise and powerful beings descending from the sky to interact with humanity. Are these all just coincidences? Is it just a universal human impulse to invent stories about gods from the sky? Or are we looking at a genuine, globally shared memory of a profound event in our distant past? If we dare to read these myths not as fiction, but as garbled history, a radical new picture of our past emerges. It is a past where humanity was not alone, a past where we were students, guided or perhaps even created by a more advanced intelligence. This interpretation transforms mythology from a collection of quaint tales into a vital, untapped source of information about our true origins. Another layer of mystery surrounding our ancient past involves the very placement of these enigmatic sites. When you plot the locations of major ancient structures on a world map, places like the pyramids of Giza, Stonehenge, Machu Picchu, and Easter Island, a strange pattern emerges. Many of these sites appear to be connected by straight lines that crisscross the globe. These alignments, known as ley lines, have been a subject of fascination and debate for over a century. Proponents of the theory believe these are not mere coincidences. They argue that these sites were deliberately placed on a global energy grid. The idea was first proposed in the 1920s by Alfred Watkins, who noticed that ancient sites in his native Herefordshire seemed to fall into straight-line alignments. He theorized these were ancient trade routes. Later researchers expanded on his work, suggesting these lines were not physical roads, but conduits of telluric, or earth energy. They proposed that our ancestors, being far more attuned to the natural world than we are today, could sense these energies. They built their temples, tombs, and observatories at specific nodes on this grid to tap into this power for healing, spiritual enlightenment, or other purposes we no longer understand. Mainstream science, of course, dismisses the entire concept of ley lines and earth energies. Archaeologists and geologists argue that with so many ancient sites scattered across the globe, it is statistically inevitable that some will line up by pure chance. They state there is no known physical force or energy that corresponds to these hypothetical lines. The theory is relegated to the realm of pseudoscience, a fanciful notion with no basis in empirical fact. It is, a classic case of the academic establishment closing its ranks against an idea that challenges its core assumptions about the world and the capabilities of ancient people. Yet, the patterns persist, and the questions remain. Is it really all just a coincidence? How did so many diverse and unconnected ancient cultures, separated by thousands of miles and thousands of years, all decide to build their most sacred structures in ways that appear to align with one another? Could there be a forgotten science at play here? A deep understanding of geomancy and earth physics that we have lost? Perhaps the grid is real. Perhaps it is a legacy of the same lost civilization that built the megaliths, a framework of power left behind by the gods who knew how to harness the very planet itself. For over 70 years, the official story about UAPs has been one of misidentification and mundane explanations. Governments, particularly the United States, have consistently dismissed sightings as weather balloons, swamp gas, or, just mass hysteria. The subject was deliberately stigmatized, and those who took it seriously, especially within official circles, risked their careers and reputations. But in recent years, that dam of denial has really begun to break. We are now living through an unprecedented period of official acknowledgement, and it's driven not by speculation, but by credible, high-ranking insiders who are stepping out of the shadows and speaking under oath. The turning point came in July of 2023, when David Grush, a decorated Air Force veteran and former high-level intelligence official, testified before the U.S. Congress. His claims were, honestly, explosive. He alleged the existence of a secret, multi-decade program to retrieve and reverse engineer crashed craft of non-human origin. He even spoke of non-human biologics being recovered from these craft. Grush stated that this information has been illegally withheld from Congress and the American people. And he was not alone. He was flanked by decorated Navy pilots David Fravor and Ryan Graves, who provided their own first-hand accounts of encountering craft that performed maneuvers impossible for any known human technology. These are not fringe figures. They are credentialed professionals who held high-level security clearances and were entrusted with the nation's secrets. Luis Elizondo, a former Pentagon intelligence officer who ran a government UAP program called AATP, has also been a key figure. He has repeatedly stated that the U.S. government is in possession of exotic material and that the phenomenon is real and not of human origin. He even speaks of a secretive arms race that has been funded off the books for decades. These whistleblowers are risking everything to bring this information to light, claiming it is a matter of profound public interest and national security. Their testimony has shifted the entire conversation. The question is no longer, do UAPs exist? The testimony from credible military eyewitnesses has confirmed they do. The new questions are far more profound. What are they? Where do they come from? And what does the government actually know? The emergence of these whistleblowers represents a seismic shift. They have given the subject a legitimacy it never had before. They have forced a reluctant government to confront a topic it has tried to bury for decades, initiating a process of disclosure that may be slow and painful, but now seems, well, pretty much irreversible. As these explosive revelations have come to light, a clear conflict has emerged. On one side, you have the whistleblowers and a growing number of lawmakers in Congress demanding transparency. On the other, you have the Pentagon and intelligence agencies engaged in a campaign of denial, obfuscation, and slow walking. This has created a battle over the truth, a struggle between those who want to reveal what is known and those who seem determined to keep it hidden. It's honestly a modern-day echo of the ancient suppression of knowledge, played out on the world stage with billions of dollars and national security at stake. The official response from the Pentagon has been one of, consistent denial. In March of 2024, the DoD's All-Domain Anomaly Resolution Office, or AARO, released a report. It claimed that after a comprehensive review of all records since 1945, it found no verifiable evidence of extraterrestrial technology, non-human beings, or a government cover-up. The report directly contradicted the sworn testimony of David Grush and the statements of Luis Elizondo. It was a clear attempt to put the genie back in the bottle, to dismiss the claims of decorated insiders and return to the old narrative of mundane explanations. This has only deepened the mistrust. This official denial has been met with intense frustration from members of Congress. Lawmakers from both parties, like Tim Burchett, Nancy Mace, and Mike Rounds, have publicly accused the Pentagon of stonewalling and using overclassification to block legitimate oversight. They have introduced bipartisan legislation, such as the UAP Disclosure Act, aimed at forcing the release of information and establishing a review board to declassify records. This legislative push shows that a significant portion of the government no longer believes the Pentagon's official story. They suspect, as Grush alleges, that a deeply hidden program exists outside of legal oversight. Meanwhile, the whistleblowers themselves have faced a predictable campaign to discredit them. Reports surfaced questioning David Grush's past mental health, and the Pentagon has publicly disputed Luis Elizondo's role and responsibilities within the ABATIP program. This is a classic playbook used to undermine the credibility of those who challenge the official narrative. It is a battle of information and control. The Pentagon claims it is being transparent, while whistleblowers and lawmakers insist a cover-up is ongoing. We are left with two competing realities, two irreconcilable truths, and the public is caught in the middle, trying to discern who is telling the truth. Amidst the political battles and historical debates, the phenomena themselves continue. Credible sightings by military personnel and civilians have not stopped. The objects being witnessed display capabilities that challenge our known laws of physics. Navy pilots have described dark cubes hovering motionless inside hurricane-force winds. They've recounted encounters with smooth, white, wingless, tic-tac-shaped objects that can accelerate to hypersonic speeds and disappear in an instant. These are not just blurry lights in the sky. They are structured craft operating in ways that we simply cannot replicate or explain. The characteristics of these UAPs are consistently described across decades of sightings. They often exhibit what have been called the 5 observables: instantaneous acceleration, hypersonic velocities without signatures, like heat plumes or sonic booms, low observability or stealth, transmedium travel, moving seamlessly between air and water, and anti-gravity lift. No single country on Earth is known to possess technology that can achieve even one of these capabilities, let alone all 5. This simple fact points to an unavoidable conclusion. The intelligence behind these craft is not from any known human government. The implications are, honestly, staggering. It suggests that we are being observed, and perhaps have been for a very long time, by an intelligence with a technological advantage that is almost beyond our comprehension. Why are they here? What is their intent? The sightings often seem to be concentrated around our most sensitive military installations, particularly those involving nuclear weapons and advanced naval fleets. This suggests a keen interest in our technological capabilities, especially our capacity for self-destruction. Are they observers, guardians, or something else entirely? We simply do not know. This modern reality forces us to reconsider the ancient stories with a new sense of urgency. The Vimanas of the Vedas, the chariots of fire in the Bible, the sky gods of countless indigenous traditions. Were these all sightings of the same phenomenon? Were our ancestors trying to describe their own encounters with these trans-medium physics-defying craft? The possibility is profound. It suggests that this presence in our skies is not a new development. It may be a constant feature of the human experience, a silent and unseen observer that has been with us throughout our long-forgotten history, revealing itself only at key moments. We find ourselves at a monumental crossroads. The mysteries of our ancient past and the revelations of our present are converging into a single, overarching question that will define the future of our species. The neat, linear story of human progress has been shattered. The megalithic ruins of a lost civilization stand as silent testament to a forgotten age of genius. The suppressed texts and burned libraries whisper of a knowledge that was deliberately taken from us. The myths of our ancestors now read less like fantasy and more like a fragmented historical record of contact with a non-human intelligence. This ancient enigma is now mirrored in our modern world. The UAP phenomenon has moved from the fringes of belief to the center of governmental debate. Credible whistleblowers, backed by frustrated lawmakers, are challenging a decades-long policy of secrecy and denial. The evidence strongly suggests that we are not alone in the universe, and we may not even be the most advanced intelligence on our own planet. The technology witnessed by our most reliable observers, our military pilots, is so far beyond our own that it forces us to reevaluate our place in the cosmos. We are like children who have just realized that there are adults in the room. Why does any of this matter? It matters because the search for these truths is fundamentally a search for ourselves. To understand our past is to unlock our potential. To confront the reality of the UAP phenomenon is to mature as a species. The ongoing cover-up, whether it is driven by a desire to prevent mass panic, protect technological secrets, or maintain control, is ultimately a disservice to humanity. It keeps us in a state of engineered ignorance, treating us as subjects to be managed rather than as partners in our own destiny. The truth, whatever it may be, belongs to all of us. The path ahead is uncertain. The push for disclosure will continue to meet resistance from entrenched powers who benefit from the status quo. But the truth has a momentum of its own. The questions raised by the stones of Göbekli Tepe and the testimony of David Grush cannot be unasked. They demand answers. Uncovering our hidden past and confronting the reality of our present may be the most important undertaking in human history. It could unify our divided world, catalyze a new era of scientific discovery, and finally allow us to take our true place as conscious, knowing members of a much larger and more mysterious cosmic community.